Good afternoon.
Gracias, Erika. Buenas tardes, comunidad de la comunidad.
TK-5 programs. We are here today for an information session to support you in making decisions about the new school year. Erica, could you please talk about interpretations, translations?
Absolutely. We're very fortunate today to have two interpreters here on our phone call. If you are a Spanish-speaking member of our community, please hover towards the bottom of your screen where you'll see the globe icon and you're able to select the Spanish interpretation, and both Claudia and Marcy will take turns in interpreting our entire session today.
Thank you, Erica. And in addition to the interpretation, this meeting is being viewed via Zoom webinar, also on our YouTube channel, and is being recorded and will be posted to the district website once it has been downloaded. I do want to introduce the staff that will be participating today, and so as I do that, please go ahead and turn on your cameras. Mr. Christopher Heller is our Human Resources Chief Academic Officer. Chris, do you want to say hello and good afternoon?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I know you have lots of information for the community. Mary Allen is our Director of Instructional Support Services. Good afternoon, Mary.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And then Andy Stubbs is our Chief Business Official.
Good afternoon. I'm not able to start my own video there.
There you are. All right. And Erica Madrigal is the executive assistant to myself and the governing board, and she will be the facilitator of this meeting. Erica, do you want to say hello again?
Hello.
I am going to share my screen at this time. It does take me just a moment. There it is. And just give me one moment, community members. There we go. So, we are here to talk about reopening in the 2021 school year. And I want to start off with reminding all members of our community that it is the goal of St. Helena Unified School District and my heart and my core to have every one of our students in school 5 days a week with us every day. We know that we are not able to do that right this minute. And as soon as public health conditions allow, we will move forward with in-person instruction. Today, we're going to talk about the phased framework that we proposed to the governing board last week and they approved. We'll talk a little bit about the schedules and the program models, and then we're going to answer questions from you. So we may move pretty quickly through the slides because we want to give time for you to ask questions and provide feedback. A few updates for you. I think you all are aware that the infection rates in the county, state, and nation continue to increase. We, as a county, reverted to more shelter-at-home restrictions last week. The Napa County Office of Education and the County Public Health published a document for us to consider when we are ready to reopen to in-person attendance. And July 17th, Governor Newsom mandated that counties on the list must provide instruction in distance learning, and that's where we are today. So the phased reentry approach that we took to the governing board takes us to where we are right now. Phase 1, robust distance learning for students who intend to join us when we can be in person. And then for those families who are concerned about the pandemic and do not feel comfortable with that in-person model, we're offering a virtual learning program for the school year. Phase 2 is that in-person, which could either be hybrid, half of the student body at a time, or all of our students in a 5 day a week. And phase 3 would be in-person as well, 5 days a week. All the while, that virtual learning program will continue throughout. This slide shows you the public health requirements for schools, and it's a continuum. You can see on the far left side, the organizing principle for lower and upper elementary schools is a stable cohort with small class sizes and physical distancing. And then moving to middle school and high school, where the class sizes may not be as small, the cohort may not be able to stay together because students are moving from one class to another. And so physical distancing and face coverings are critically important. Mr. Heller is now going to talk about some models of instruction. Chris?
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. So at the governing board meeting in June, the governing board took action to approve our models of instructional delivery. And as you can see on the screen, there are three models that were approved. One is the full distance learning, which you can see is we're required to implement at this time. Then there's the hybrid model of learning, which we'll talk a little bit more about, but that would have students grouped in an A and a B group, and I'll show you on the schedule what that would look like. And then we have the daily school instruction with the physical distancing and other considerations for safety once we are back in school. On the next slide, I think Mary is going to talk a little bit about these options right here. Mary?
Certainly, as Dr. Wilson stated at the very beginning of our presentation today, first of all, I think I want everybody to understand that we know this is a difficult decision and this is an unprecedented year that none of us expected, and nor do we want to be in. So I'm going to share about our two options. Option number one for families is that they can choose the in-person learning model, which is the phased-in model for St. Helena Unified, or option two, which is the virtual learning option, where a family is not comfortable having their son or daughter in school during the pandemic. And we certainly understand that, absolutely understand that. So for the schedule for the in-person, Mr. Heller is going to go in more detail right after this, but for the TK-5 levels, students would be assigned to small class cohorts for the year. And in the 6th through 12th grade, we would be doing block schedule, which means longer periods of classes. So we minimize the transitions in between having multiple classes in one day. For the virtual learning, you are selecting this option for the year. For TK-5, you will get the 4 core classes: English, ELD, math, science, and social studies. 6th through 8th grade, you'd get the 4 core classes I just stated, plus a foreign language of French or Spanish. And 9th through 12th grade, you'd get 6 classes, the core classes that I discussed, and then you would be working with the high school counselors and administration on what other classes are needed for your schedule. This would be a full year commitment should you select the virtual learning options. I think, Mr. Heller, it's probably best if you go into the schedules, and then we'll get back to answering some of those questions. But the big difference as well this year that you're going to see is we are going to have fixed schedules, and we are going to have more live instruction of face-to-face with our teachers and for our students with our teachers. Thank you, Mr. Heller.
Yes, thanks. In thinking about our schedules from last year when we shut down our facilities on March 13th, we have to look at last year as a instruction in the pandemic, in the teeth of the pandemic, and our response for our students was, adequate, probably good, but not great where we want to be. And so with time and with an opportunity to prepare and develop a schedule, we feel a lot more comfortable about the schedules that we're going to present to you today. This one right here shows the TK-5 distance learning. And this would have a breakdown of the different times and aspects of a student day: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. You can see that there's built-in time for at-home study. There's time for language arts and mathematics, as well as core subject as determined by the teacher, working either in small groups or larger groups, depending on the need and depending on the need in particular subject matter. They also have time in the afternoon to continue to reach out and support students by individually contacting them and their parents from 2 to 3:10. On the next slide, this would show grades 6 through 12. We can go through that very quickly since our audience is TK-5. But these schedules are available on the website as available for our community to look at and access as well. So if we can take a look at the hybrid model within the So the hybrid model, as I discussed earlier, has Group A and Group B. This allows 2 days of instruction in class when we can return to that, whether it's in phase 2 or early phase 2 or later stages of phase 2. But we would be broken up as Group A would be a cohort of students that would come to school on Monday and Tuesday. And then Group B would come to school on Thursday and Friday. So if you think of your class size divided in half, you would have half reporting on Monday and Tuesday, and half on Thursday and Friday, and all students receiving distance learning on Wednesday. So we want to try to restore those classes as soon as possible to get those students the individual instruction that they need. And this would be an example of the schedule of that day. Again, it could, 8:30 is a start time, but it depends on transportation and site-based needs. It could adjust and fluctuate a few minutes, as well as considerations within the day where you see break that might alter a tad to permit cohorts to go outside and have their little cohort recess, so they're not intermingling with the entire school population, but just with their particular class size. So as we advance through to the full day schedule, you can see that this allows all students to attend school daily, really keeping in mind the considerations that we need to have with distancing of desks and teachers and students, considerations of face masks, considerations of hand washing times, all the things that we need to consider to operate school on a daily basis. You would notice that school would end a little earlier than it has traditionally, about 1:23 approximately. This would permit students time to get a grab and go lunch, whether they were to go home or to get on district provided transportation to get back to their home for that at-time study that's provided. So I think there's one more slide after this. Oh, and that would be Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And so we've been working hard all during the summer to support the instructional plan in all of these non-instructional areas. And Chris already mentioned about transportation and food services. We've been purchasing all of the equipment and supplies that we're going to need to promote student and staff safety as outlined in the guidelines. And so, for example, we've got thousands of masks coming. We have student barriers for desks. We have hand washing and hand sanitization stations. We have physical barriers, physical distancing signage and floor stickers. With regard to family learning, we are planning some family education modules and support so that families can help their students learn at home successfully. In the area of technology, we have purchased some additional wireless hotspots just today, in fact, that will cover a wider range of network providers so that we can help to ensure that all students have reliable access to the internet. And our IT team will continue throughout the time that we're distance learning to support students and staff and make sure that they have what they need and ensure that they have reliable devices as well. Students are turning their devices back in this weekend. That information is posted on the district website so that the IT staff can process those and prepare those for redeployment to the students at the start of the school year. As Chris mentioned, we'll have that grab and go breakfast and lunch. That'll be continuing. Students will need to reapply for free and reduced price meals, but there are some different waivers that will be in place all year long that will help us to ensure that we can deliver meals in a flexible way. And then staff will be continuing to support students with special needs who, based on their individual needs as outlined in their individual education plans. And we're working with the Boys and Girls Club to determine what ongoing childcare will be provided through them.
Should have already happened.
So as a review, we are in phase one now. That is that distance learning for students who are in person or planning to come to us in person, and then also the virtual learning program with that intent to move as quickly as possible to in person, whether that be on an AB schedule or all students on a daily basis. Our next steps, first day of school is August 18th. We are asking parents to select an option via that Google survey by August 4th. The survey can be found on the website, and it's been sent to you via a text, I believe, on Sunday of this last weekend, and we will send additional texts with reminders over the coming days. So as a reminder, you're selecting between two options: distance learning with the intent of being in person as soon as possible, or virtual learning for the entire school year. If you take no action by August 4th, you will be placed in the distance learning with the intent of being with us in person. We are now at that time for questions, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that you can see all of the members of the panel and a couple of comments, and then I will ask Erica to give you some instructions on how to ask questions. Currently, we have on our district website a Q&A opportunity. We've received many questions from the community, and we are working diligently to respond to those daily and get those answers posted. We encourage you to continue asking questions in that manner, as well as here today. And please understand that, as Mary mentioned earlier on in this presentation, this is really difficult. It's difficult for all of us. I'm going into my 34th, 35th year of education, and never did I think that schools' facilities would be closed for the number of days that they've been closed, nor did I think that I would have to make the kinds of decisions that we're having to make on a daily basis. So we're going to work really hard this afternoon to answer your questions and alleviate your concerns. We may not have all the answers right this minute because you may ask something that we haven't even thought of yet. I know Mr. Heller tells me regularly that he's concerned about missing what's the thing I've missed, and as he works diligently to support our principals and our teachers in being in school. So again, we may have the answer, we may not. If we don't, then we will get it posted to the Q&A chart once we do have that answer. Erica, Ms. Madrigal, could you please give instructions as to how our members of the community can share concerns, ask questions, or provide feedback?
Yes, if you are joining us through Zoom on your desktop, on your laptop, or through the Zoom app on any of your mobile devices, you may hover down towards the bottom of your screen and you'll see the hand icon there. You want to click on that hand icon and that will notify me that you have a question. If you are joining us by phone, if you are dialing in, you need to press *9 to raise your hand. Once your hand is raised, I will call on you and allow you the opportunity to speak. You still have to unmute your mic, and then you may ask your question.
Thank you, Ms. Madrigal. So at this point, I'll ask that you begin sharing with us and opening the microphone for anyone that has a question.
Yes, Carrie, I am going to allow you to talk. You may unmute your mic.
I am just wondering if there will be additional tech support for kids at home rather than just one person, and that was a problem last year, and she did a great job, but I think we need a little more at home. Is that under consideration?
Andy, you want to work on that question for us?
So do you mean if a student has a question about accessing a program or something of that nature?
Sure, but even like my kids had access to the entire district's meetings somehow, and there was only one person who was taking care of things. So I'm just wondering if we have extra Chrome people. There was only one person last year taking care of all of these children with issues that arose. And I'm wondering if we have more than one person now.
Andy, may I jump in and help you with this question?
Certainly, yes.
We're going to have site-specific folks that know about all the programs that they're utilizing at the sites that will be helping out with students this year. We'll also be training students at the beginning of the year of how to access all the apps, and also training parents to assist their students. So we anticipate a much smoother transition to the distance learning this year than we had last year. So we absolutely feel confident that we're going to be able to take care of the student needs.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Ms. Madrigal, next question.
Yes, Alex Allen, please unmute your mic so that you can ask your question.
Hi, thank you all for doing this. I would just love more information on whether small group real-time learning is planned to be implemented and how you might be using that for differentiated learning needs.
Mary, would you like to respond to that question?
Sure. We are absolutely, we're going to be, Alex, I'm glad you're joining us today. We are definitely going to be able to assess students to find out what learning loss we've had from last year. And for those students that needs additional support, we're going to provide that. We are absolutely have small grouping built in. We also have tutoring built in. We also will have designated groups of teachers that will be responsible for student support to make sure that they're getting the support they need. Because we know we lost some kids last year. They were disengaged. They didn't understand it. They didn't know how to get on. So we're going to provide a lot more support this year. In reference to small grouping, all of our cohorts will have live instruction, and we will be able to access daily attendance, see who's engaged, who's not engaged, and also find out where their learning needs are and provide that support when we can. Am I answering the question you're looking for, Alex?
Hi, yes, I think so. It's also probably something that'll be iterated over time, but it just, that's one of the areas that my kids and I know other kids struggled with were large group meetings. I think that it can cause kids to have anxiety to be in large groups and they can't really interact meaningfully with the other kids. So in as much as it can be supported, it would be great.
Mr. Heller, do you want to speak to the schedule?
I just wanted to add, Alex, that's a great piece of feedback because you'll see in the schedule design, and we had a TK-5 teacher sit in and help us take a look at this as we develop the schedule, just that the idea of having those small groups and having it be designated by teacher, and I think they're about 35, maybe 40 minutes of designated time to be able to differentiate and work with different levels or work with different core instructions. So they felt that flexibility within the day and having those smaller groups by, it depends by the class, just like you're saying, a first grader is going to be a little different than a fifth grader. So that flexibility will be determined a little bit more, as you said, different iterations of it by teacher. So, but you could see within the schedule itself that has that flexibility. And it did work for many teachers in the spring as they started thinking about how to design their day and their lessons at that time. So with that success model, they felt that this was a great starting point for our distance learning in the fall.
Yes, and these schedules are posted on the district website. I know we went through them pretty quickly this afternoon, so you can analyze them in more detail on the district website. Ms. Madrigal, next question.
May I add on to that question just real quick? I just want to state that the teachers have been trained in Zoom this year, which we'll be using for the platform for the lower grades. So they'll start out with whole group, and then now they know how to do breakout sessions for our students so we can differentiate within a class time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Christina, I am going to allow you to talk. Please unmute your mic.
Hi, thank you again for doing this meeting. It is very helpful. I had a couple questions on the hybrid model. On the days that are sort of the off-campus days, let's say you're in Group B and it's a Monday or Tuesday, is there any virtual instruction on those days, or is the expectation that on those off days, the parents doing the instruction the full day, or is that augmented with the virtual meetings still?
Yeah, great question, Christina. This is still to be worked out with a little bit more in depth of how we can serve the students in class while the other Group B may not be in class. We've had conversations about how to, would a student be engaged just by turning on Zoom and being able to watch, maybe at a fifth grade level, possibly at a first grade or kindergarten level. We have concerns about that. So we're still trying to adjust and make that schedule that works to where we know that students will have to have some time to check in with their teachers on work that they'll be doing, which you can see in the afternoon. But how does that morning instruction work? So more to come there, and I'm sure our principals will communicate that as well as the teachers once that time comes.
Thank you, Chris. Ms. Madrigal?
Yes. Jesse, you are now unmuted. You may ask your question.
Hi, thank you. My question was about the fuel education. So if we chose option 2, for a first grade level, would that all be in front of a computer, or would that program give them assignments, information, et cetera, that they would then take and do not in front of not in front of a computer?
Got a little one right there. Mary, would you like to respond to that question?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So for fuel education for the lower grades, it is more exploratory. So there's a lot of hands-on that would actually include materials that you would pick up or be shipped to the home. So you would have some online time with a teacher because it is personalized learning, and you'd have a lot of hands-on materials.
Like a trampoline. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing your little one on. It sings my heart, makes my heart sing to hear little ones. Ms. Madrigal, next question.
Stephanie Perry, you're unmuted.
Stephanie, you need to unmute your microphone on your end as well.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Question.
We're all learning.
So my question is in line with the last speaker. Really, I thought this meeting today was to introduce the online learning option, and so I'm wondering how parents would go about learning about that. There's not much on their website where you can actually experience or see what their website is much more geared towards school districts and less towards families, from what I could gather. So how would I go about finding out what that would look like in real time for my kids?
Mary?
Stephanie, if you put that question Q&A, I will put some links on there that actually have videos a day in the life of a student on this program, which will give you a little more detail. You're correct. There's a couple of websites that are strictly business related, and then there's some that are actual parent related to show you what a day looks like. So if you submit your question, I'll put those links on there for everybody.
Thank you, Stephanie. Ms. Madrigal?
May, I am allowing you to talk. Please unmute your mic.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for organizing this and taking our questions. It really helps to see all of you and to help sort of elucidate your plan moving forward. So thank you. And thank you, Erica, for pronouncing my name correctly. So nice. So my question is actually speaking specifically as well about fuel education. And it'll be really helpful just from the perspective of a parent to sort of see about how they lay out their curriculum, what it would look like. I guess more specifically, I would love to know how you all came to the decision to choose fuel education as the resource, who the educators are. I was curious about like why this particular company and how they can best serve our community. I'm sure you guys had a very specific reason as to why you chose this company. I just had never heard of them, and it would be interesting to hear more about them specifically. And thank you.
Good question. Mary, would you like to talk a little bit about the research that you and Mr. Heller conducted?
Absolutely. We vetted several sources, and this source had many awards given to them. They've been around for a long time. They're part of the K-12 education, K12.org education site, but there's several components to that site. Fuel education is a component of the K-12. They have, when we were looking at a variety of materials and variety of sites, this one aligns best with what we offer here in the district and works with our programming. And they're also integrating within our system. So you would be, this particular student, if you select to do virtual, you literally are still considered one of our students within the St. Helena Unified School District. So a lot of vetting, a lot of research. We looked at Virtual Academy, we looked at Virtual Connections, we looked at Laurel Hills, we looked at Khan Academy. So several online platforms, and this one aligns best with what we're looking for.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Ms. Madrigal, next question.
Rachel Williams, please unmute your mic.
Yeah, I just had a question regarding, I have a child that's going into second grade. I also have one going into sixth grade and one that's also going into high school. So my question for this forum is obviously for the primary school, but if they're going to be in these small cohorts like A and B, for example, will they start out with the distance learning with that already established? So maybe when they're doing their small group work, they'll be working within that little small cohort. And then if they transfer back part-time to the school, then will they kind of be able to establish those relationships? Because I know they're all going to be switching classes like from first grade to second grade, and it's going to be a lot of new faces as it is. So would there be that opportunity for them to sort of bolster up those friendships with their small cohort?
Mr. Heller, do you want to talk about scheduling again?
Sure. Unfortunately, Rachel, one of the challenges of the hybrid is, it does cut the classes in half. And when we look at a full distance learning model, that's not established within that A and B group already. In fact, it's our intent as the district to really hopefully go from distance learning to, full person instruction as quickly as possible. And the hybrid would only be used as a short term or a, return to school type of model, because we know that we want to have the students in front of their teachers as quickly as possible. So to answer the question, to break them up into A and to B and the distance learning just wouldn't work within that model. But I do know that the teachers are, we are going to talk a little bit further about establishing relationships in that first week. And it's different than the usual activities that they do at the beginning of the year, but they are going to do some things at the beginning of the year to establish new rapport with all of their classmates. So if they do break up into an A and B group, hopefully they've established some relationships, through via Zoom, however that works as best they can. So when they get into a classroom setting, they'll
for sure.
their faces.
In addition, Rachel, you know that our class sizes already are much smaller than most districts across the state of California. So
absolutely,
with that good fortune and that ability to have small class size already, we based on enrollment moving into the in-person and the virtual programming, we may be able to build classes that are small enough that we can move to that in-person model, as Mr. Heller said, as quickly as possible, because that's our primary goal, is to have our students here with us every day.
Okay, so completely skip the phase 2 or the phase 3, whatever that is, where it's like the 2-day A and B.
That will only, as Mr. Heller said, if we are required to do that because of any of the orders that are coming, directives that are coming to us, or we may use that as a transition to move students into the classroom in order to give them that even smaller class size for a moment to build that face-to-face relationship with teachers.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. Just kind of like a B. In the event that you sign up to do the hybrid method, and then you decide as a parent, oh, well, I'm not really comfortable with my kid going back in person, even though they're saying it's safe. Is there anything in place for parents that is available were we to change our minds?
Mr. Heller?
I'm not sure I understand. You're saying the in-person model you want to, and then you say it's still not safe and you'd like to elect to go to field education?
Well, right. So like now I say, oh, okay, I'm going to go with the hybrid method because I don't want to do the virtual online for the year. But then the state mandates change and they say, okay, schools are ready to go back. But then as a parent, for instance, I'm not just saying like for me, but just in general, if someone were to say like, oh, I'm actually not comfortable with my child going back, or I'm not comfortable with kind of emotionally my child having to be in class and wearing a mask or blah, blah, and then change their mind.
Sure. Yeah. So the reason I asked for clarification is you could elect to do that, to go from our in-person into the distance learning. But once students are enrolled in our
virtual program,
the challenge is they won't be able to come back because we're basing our class size on the number of in-person students that we're going to have by grade level, and basing our staffing and our class sizes off that using the physical distancing. So
gotcha.
If I establish a class size of 16 And, you know, I'm counting on those in-person students to attend at the number of 16. It's really challenging then to have 3 students say, well, we want to return back to the in-person model. That's why we've designed it the way we have, is because we would be unable to accommodate all the students safely in the classroom. So that's why we're looking for parents to, you know, submit that by next Tuesday, so we can get a sense of what our true class numbers are, so we can build our staffing off of that. And we're, you know, each day that goes by, we're running out of time, but we also want parents to have opportunity to kind of think about that the next week through the weekend, so we can have a decision by Tuesday. So thank you for asking that question. That helps me get that little point in, just to reinforce that so families know that.
That is
super complex.
Helpful.
Yes.
It's really good to know that it's better to go from the hybrid back to the online, the total online, than to select online and then wish that your kid could go back to school.
You have that option in that way, and then the other way, when you choose the virtual program to start with, you would not have that option. So that's a good way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
And understand also, Rachel, and all members that are participating today, at the point when we are able to go to in-person, because we've been off of the state monitoring list for 14 consecutive days, we could go back on that monitoring list at some point where we are directed to go back into distance learning. Right. And so, you know, Mr. Heller really worked on schedules that allow us the fluidity of moving in and out of those schedules if needed. Ms. Madrigal, next question.
Yes, Brittany, I am going to allow you to talk. Please unmute your mic.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here and taking so many questions. So I have 2 questions. One of them is probably a little bit more controversial, but it's just something that I would like to know either way. If the district has reached a policy decision yet, which is, should a vaccine become available during the school year, do we yet know if that's going to be something that's going to be mandated for students to do in-person education? And then my second question is, as the parent of a special needs child who does have an IEP, will we be contacted at some point with how additional support is going to happen for that child? Or is that, I'm kind of wondering, I know you guys have said that there's going to be additional support, and I really appreciate that. I'm just wondering what I should be looking out for so I don't drop the ball on staying in communication on my end to make sure he gets what he needs.
So, Mary, I'm going to take the first half, and if you can take the special ed piece. So with regards to a vaccine and whether that vaccine would be mandated, that is not my call. That would be federal, state, local public health officials and their directives. Would that potentially cause us, if there was a vaccine found, would, you know, whether or not any of those requirements that you mentioned, Brittany, you know, does a child have to have the vaccine in order to come back in person? All of those kinds of unknowns truly are unknowns, and you're the first one to come to us with questions that we don't have the answer for yet. I'm really sorry.
No, that's okay.
And I think it's important for you to know that as superintendent, I participate in weekly briefings with the Office of Emergency Services here in the Napa County. I also participate in weekly briefings with the public health officer, Dr. Reluccio. And then when we are able, when they're offered, myself and staff members are participating in state level meetings with the California Department of Education. So we're doing everything we can to have as much information as we possibly can as we move forward and work through the many pages of guidance that we've received. So in the event that that kind of information is coming forward, much like I've been posting updated video updates and or information on the website, you're going to get that kind of information. It likely will come at a more national level before it comes from me specifically, but absolutely we'll do everything we can to keep everyone updated. Mary, you want to talk about special education? Oh, you're welcome, Brittany. I'm sorry I don't have the answer.
Good afternoon, Brittany. For special education, I can tell you that we are diligently working with our local SELPA, which is the Special Ed Local Educational Agency for Napa County. And we're looking at all the guidelines and creating guidelines to make sure that we're addressing individual IEPs and providing those services, whether in person or distance. So we are at a much better place this year than we were last year. And so I feel quite comfortable that we are going to be able to provide those services on the IEP as directed.
And would that be available to him regardless of whether he was doing in person or doing the fuel option?
Brittany, if he's doing the fuel option, that's one of the reasons why we selected fuel as well, is that they have the capability of handling special ed, students with special needs, as well as our English learners. So parents have that option, and you certainly could go in that direction. They service both based on the IEP.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Madrigal, next question.
Carrie, you're allowed to talk. Please unmute your mic.
Hello again. I'm so sorry. I just have a question about how parents are going to be notified about what's due. You know, there's several days that I'm going to be working, and I know that this maybe not TK through 5 as much, but still, what is due? How are they doing? It was very different last year. It was hard to check in on progress without talking to teachers. Are we going to be using Aries at all levels, and every teacher uses Aries so we know what's due when, so we can check in on their progress? Or
Mr. Heller?
Mary, go ahead. Did you want to take that?
We will be using Google Classroom as our learning management platform, so parents can access, you'll have capability of accessing our Google Classroom, but we are using Aries 6 through 12 for grade attendance. We are doing grades this year. We're not doing credit, and we're doing standards-based grade at the lower grades as well. So accountability measures are going to be built in this year, and we are having the capability of our teachers directly having contact with parents and students weekly. So you should be able to stay abreast of everything that's expected of your child. We are anticipating being in school. So this year, you are in school, whether you are in distance learning or in person, we're considering this school. So all the obligations, expectations, and grading will follow both platforms, whichever one we're in.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. And I would suggest to all of you that when I closed school on March 13th, I truly believed that we would be back in school in 2 weeks and have a week before spring break, and everyone would go and have a great time and come back to school. And we truly found ourselves, all of us, the entire community, the state, the nation, in a crisis. And the crisis was changing minute by minute. We haven't left that crisis. We are in a more planned crisis at this point. And so what Mary is talking about with regards to rigor and robust distance education, we do believe will become more of a reality at this point in time.
So really quickly with that, though, is there a way then, because I understand when you get to the older grades with the Aries, that's great. But with the Google Chrome, it's very hard for a parent to see. Is there a way to allow them to print from home and open that up, or be able to email a parent something so they can print something? Because when they are on their computers all day, the eyes are hurting, even with the blue glasses. Just curiosity if it's anything that you have thought about.
That's a really good question, Carrie. So we'll look at that, and thank you for sharing that in reference to the printing capability. We have purchased mice for our lower grades in reference to 3rd through 8th grade, so students can have a mouse at home. We've purchased headphones so students can have headphones to block out the distractions at home. And I will certainly look into the printing capability in reference to Chrome. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you so much.
And group, I'm just going to let you know that we do have the 6 through 12 at 4 o'clock, so we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. If your question doesn't get answered, please go to the website. Please submit it in the question and answer section on the website, and we will get your questions answered. Ms. Madrigal, next question.
Susan, please unmute your mic. You are allowed to talk.
I don't know if these questions will be answered with the links to the Fuel Ed, but I do have two specific questions. One, and that has to do with who teaches the students.
They are credentialed teachers working through Fuel Education.
Are they from this state, this area, or anywhere?
Fuel Education is nationwide, and they're in several districts. There are approximately, I believe, in all 50 states. I'm not sure where the educators are coming from, but they're dealing with grade level standards and state standards. So I'm quite comfortable with a credentialed teacher teaching those grade level standards.
And I've tried to get demos from them, and they've never arrived. My question is then, do they have small group instruction? And if there is small group instruction, are the kids in that small group from this school district? Or are they also from elsewhere?
My understanding, Susan, as I'm looking at it and talking with the representatives and working with the company, it's personalized learning. So it is individualized based on your son or daughter's needs, and they would be working directly with the teacher, and there would be no small grouping at this time.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Madrigal, next question.
Sean, please unmute your mic so you may ask your question.
Yes, thank you. This is Sean Mora. I want to make sure, I apologize, I did join late from a previous work call, so I apologize in advance if you already answered this. But when I am looking at the TK-5 remote learning plan, so the in St. Helena District plan for remote learning, if my child is in small group A, as an example, so I just want to make sure I understand a typical day. My child would be online doing at-home study time at 8:30. There would be an a live class from the child's teacher from 9:45 to 10:45, then a break. Then if my child is in small group A, I'll just say, is at 10:40 again. If she is not in small group B or in small group C, she would have no further contact through the day. Am I reading that correctly?
Chris, Mary?
That would be correct. If they were in small group A, they would have the study time, the contact in the morning, and then their small group core A. And then we broke it out in A, B, and C if the teacher wanted to have smaller groups, but there could be a need where a teacher would convene the group together and have just two groups. So it might be A and B, and then and right before or after lunch there would be A and B together. So it does have some flexibility in the schedule. Again, these aren't the final schedules. These are draft documents for the board to approve in concept. So it does have some ability for the principals and the teachers when they get back to tinker with it a little bit more. But yeah, you could see that the small group opportunities, as you said, potentially could look like that, yes.
And then I guess my follow-on question to that is, if my daughter is only in group A, so the only time spent with the teacher is those 2 times, and then outside of that, are they doing online learning like they did last spring?
They would have other individual activities or projects or things that the teacher had assigned for them to work on during that time, yes.
And would it be the same types of online classes, like Edmentum, Reflex? I'm sorry, I'm probably crossing technologies across grades, but
potentially it could, or it could be, practicing writing or grammar or things like that a teacher would assign. Again, it'll look very different depending on the grade level, but we expect the grade levels to be very consistent in their delivery. So most first grade classes would look alike because they're grade level time.
Chris, if I could interrupt, Chris, in an effort to save time today, we did not use time in this presentation to talk about the parent surveys. Those are posted on the district website. In building the TK-5 schedule, you were truly trying to align the amount of time that students are online with the input that was given by parents. Is that correct?
Within the hybrid model, yes, there were 3 opportunities or 3 choices that would be a half day with a group A in the morning and B in the afternoon. The model that garnered the most support, I think at about 55%, the one that was displayed earlier, and then another AB option where we had A in school all one week and then B the following week. So
I was referring to screen time. Screen time is what I was referring to. The amount of screen time per day.
That too, yeah. Yes. We did add the question there too. So we had, you know, we provided that opportunity for parents to say how much time they really wanted their students to be in front of the screen. We're mindful of that even while students are in school, how much time they're using programs or accessing laptops versus, you know, communication and working with their teacher. So it was about 1 to 2 hours was where it's centered for online instruction. And so we use that as our model and our guide as we develop these schedules.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Heller, Ms. Allen, Ms. Stubbs. We are coming up on the 3:55 time point, and we do need to prepare for the 6 through 12, which means we need to shut this this Zoom call down so we can open a new one. There are a handful of you that still have not had your questions answered, and so please, we do encourage you to post them on the district website. If you go to the district website, click on Q&A, there's a way for you to simply add your question, and then, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we have been responding to those within 24 to 48 hours, and we do want for those questions, so please feel free to post them. Thank you for your questions. They're really good questions, and we appreciate your participation and your support. As I said earlier, this is very difficult for all of us, and we know it's really difficult for you as parents, and we wish that you would take good care and keep us posted on your questions, and look for us again very soon. Thank you again.